Hey guys, Rogowy here and another tutorial in Photoshop. Today we are looking at blending modes in Photoshop, and we're going to talk a little bit about how we can combine different images together to create new effects and why you might want to use this from time to time. It's kind of a neat feature of Photoshop itself. Somewhat basic, but the effect that you produce can be pretty cool. So let's look at the images again in the tutorial files folder. We have got an image of a Winnipeg skyline. We've got Drake. We've got a grunge background. We've got the MTS Center from downtown. We got a picture of Nicki Minaj. And before we get started here, I want to make very clear that I take no credit for the photos used in the tutorial. These are for educational purposes only. And like I said, I take no credit. So let's start with the grunge.jpg, this kind of scratchy looking background here. We're going to open that with Photoshop. Drag it to Photoshop. Let that load. There it is. All right, so when you're in Photoshop, you might want to put different pictures together. And the last tutorial that we talked about was selections. And selections are fantastic because you can take out backgrounds, you can keep parts that you want, and you can use the image in a whole different way. With blending modes, we are keeping the image intact. We could erase parts of it if we don't want, but what we're changing is the way that the layers interact with one another. All right, so let me show you what I mean. We're going to open up the Winnipeg skyline file. I'm going to drag that to Photoshop. Whoa! Drag that to Photoshop. And now we've got the Winnipeg skyline and grunge open in separate tabs. So let's move the Winnipeg skyline image into the grunge file. And just a reminder on how to do that, because people seem to have trouble dragging images from one to another. You're going to go to the Move tool. You're going to click and hold, and you're going to drag, and I'm still holding, bringing it over to this tab, and drop it in there. What I'm going to do is I want to get the new bridge that we have in the city in the shot here, kinda. And we're going to make sure that our layers palette is showing. So you can go to Window Layers in case that's not there. I also want to talk a little bit about the History palette today. We'll talk about that too, because it's kind of useful. Actually, it's very useful. So there's our picture, one on top of another. There's the grunge background. We got the layer one, which is the Winnipeg skyline, and all I'm doing here is clicking the eye on and off so I can turn off or turn on different parts. All right, so with that layer one, what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the blending mode. And blending modes, like I said, change the way that photos interact with one another when they're stacked up. So right here at the top of the layers palette, you see where it says normal. And normal means that we just have the image sitting one on top of another, no changes made. However, we're going to go in here and we're going to change it. And we're going to, for this one, we're going to go multiply. So change the first layer to multiply. And now, the interesting thing that happens when you do that is this skyline image now takes on some qualities of the grungy background below. Okay, so not only do I have the skyline, but now the vignette shows up and some of the scratchiness of that background shows up as well. Kind of cool. And that's what blending modes do. They change the way that layers interact with one another. And sometimes you can create some really cool new effects by doing that. So let's build up this image layer by layer. Let's make kind of a neat effect by the end here. So the next one we're going to open up, we can actually close this tab. We don't need it anymore. We are going to open up mts.jpg. Oh man, what's wrong with me today? There we go, mts.jpg. There it is. And this time we're going to, same thing, move it and drop it into there. Now it is frickin' huge. So we're going to zoom out. Let's just zoom out a bit. Remember the trick, Command T to shrink your image down. We're going to kind of put the MTS center over top. I know it's going to look bad, so don't start bashing me and saying I don't know what I'm doing here. Let's shrink it down to about that, so it just kind of fits the frame. Some people out there are saying, man, this looks like amateur hour here. But bear with me, bear with me. So, okay, we got the MTS center now sitting on top of the grunge and the skyline. And we're going to go to soft light for this one. Okay, so now what's happening? Well, you can see that we can see the grunge still, we can see the skyline, and we can see the MTS center overlaid into the sky of the skyline, creating 3 images put together. That's kind of cool. Now, again, so far we haven't done anything that amazing, but we are changing blending modes and we're looking at what different ones, how different ones affect the image. All right, and I strongly encourage you to experiment here and find what works and what doesn't. All right, so let's continue on. Next image we're going to open up, Nicki Minaj. This one's really going to change the way the photo looks, and I'll show you why. So let's bring her, let's bring her into the other tab, drop it in there. All right, let me just close these other tabs because they get annoying pretty fast. Now, for this one, before I even do anything at all, I guess I can enlarge her a little bit in the photo here, but before I really do anything, I want to see what a blending mode is going to do to this image. So I enlarged her to kind of fill up the scene. We're going to change the blending mode for her to lighten. Lighten. And look what happens. Nicki gets filled with the city scene behind it. So let's enlarge her some more. And the cool thing about that is the area around her still stays white, but the inside of her is now filled with our collage of images. All right? Kind of cool. So that's what we got so far. Let's bring in Drake. Okay, we're going to bring in his picture into Photoshop. There he is. And let's drag him into that collage that we're creating here. Let's change his blending mode to screen. And now we just kind of see he's almost like a ghost here. You know, we'll put him somewhere about here. I don't know. Something like that. So we got Nicki Minaj and Drake. Now I'm going to shrink him down a bit because he looks weird there. Shrink him down a bit. He's kind of coming in from the side like that, which is kind of cool. Now remember, if you don't like parts of it, like I think it looks weird where his hair is overlapping her face. So I can always take my eraser and just get rid of parts that I don't want and kind of bring back the parts from underneath. All right, so kind of weird, kind of cool, I don't know. Let's go with one more. Let's take the title text, which is here somewhere. Where is it? We will find the title text in a second. Okay, before we add the title text, I forgot one quick step here. We want to go back to the Nicki Minaj layer, which in my case here is layer 3. And just for organization's sake, it's good to get in the habit of naming your layers. All right, so just click the title of the layer and call them Drake and Minaj and MTS and Winnipeg, I guess. And I'm going to call the background grunge. All right, you see, that's nice. And when you get with complicated files and you forget what's on which, what's on each layer, that helps. Click the Minaj layer. Go to Image Adjustments, Black and White. You could tweak these settings. I'm going to hit OK. That ties it in better with the other photo. We're going to go Command T. We're going to shrink her down a bit. And just fit it in nicely like that. Something like that. Better. Drake, Command T. Shrink him down a bit too. This will help us for the next step. So something like that. All right, now the cool thing is if you ever want to go and change your blending modes at any time, you can just highlight the layer you're on. Let's say the MTS center looks weird. You can easily just change it, you know? Go to overlay, go to hard light. Just change it around to what you like. That's what's cool about this. Now we're going to add the title. Okay, so I'm going to just move this all the way, and the title.psd right there it is. And we're going to bring the title into the other file, drop it on top. All right, that looks horrible. So let's go through the blending modes and try to figure out which one's going to work here. So darken, no. Color burn, no. Linear, no. All these modes change the way that the layers interact with each other. So with most images, you'll find one that does work eventually. In this case, I already know it's subtract. All right, so there we go. Command T, let's bring that layer down, the size of it. All right, something like that. Something like that. We can move it around after. Okay, so what did we learn here? It's actually a pretty quick tutorial, but what did we learn here? We learned that we can take different images, and by changing the way they interact with one another through blending modes, we can change the overall look of our final image. This is pretty helpful stuff because, again, down the road, you're going to want to create different photos, different pictures, and different combinations of pictures. And you may find that blending modes save your butt when you're stuck for a certain effect, or you want to make something look interesting. All right, so hopefully that helps. If you got this far, go to File, Save, and save it to your desktop. Call it grunge or whatever. Save it, and you are good to go. All right, I forgot something really important that I wanted to talk about. And I knew this would happen. I talked about having the history window up earlier. So window history, in case that's not showing up. Why do you want to have the history window showing? Sometimes it comes in like that. You want to stretch it out as much as possible. The history window is super important because it allows you to go back a bunch of steps to change your picture. So let's say you make a mistake and you don't realize it till, I don't know, way down. You know, you're really, really far into this and then you realize, oh man, I screwed up or I forgot to do this. You can easily go back and change it later. All right, that's super important. I see a lot of people going to edit step backwards. That sucks because you have to do it so many times. In the history palette here, you can just click till you get back to where that mistake was made. All right, sorry about that. I had to mention it. Make sure you use that too. Good stuff.